Shalom, my friends. Welcome to this week's word study, which I'm aiming at children. Yeshua said, "Don't stop the little children from coming unto me." Children are wonderful. I've had someone recently tell me, Alan, our children never had any real interest in the word. Talking about children that are in their pre-teens, until we started showing them the Otiot. And, recently you probably saw I put up a video where some young children sent me their workbooks. They're studying the Otiot. They're being homeschooled, and they watch my videos every day as part of their curriculum. So, I asked them, what do you want me to teach on? They said, teach on the Otiot. So they love the Otiot. These are my flash cards. You can get these on the web. At the end of this video, I have a link where you can get the Otiot Flash Cards. See, one side has the Otiot, and then on the other side, there's all the information. So, you can show them to your children, and you're looking at the other side with all the info. Flashcards. In fact, here's a picture of my beloved granddaughter, Isabella. My daughter Michelle had Isabella in 2014 on January 14th. And that baby has been learning the Otiot from the first time she opened her eyes, basically. So, she sees them, and these pictures speak to the Ruach, small r, your spirit, a child's spirit especially, because, they are not filled with as much darkness and confusion as we adults have been. You can also, get my workbook, Lashon HaKodesh Kadam. That should be Safa HaKodesh Kadam. And there's a bit of an introduction explaining things for you, and then all of the Otiot, kind of like the backside, in fact, exactly the same as the backside of the flashcards. And at the end of this video, there'll be a link. You can get the workbook as well. So that'll help. But, Yeshua said, "Don't stop the little kids from coming unto me." And Yahweh commanded all male heads of the household to teach his word to their wives and to their children. There's a mighty beracha, blessing, behind obeying any one of the Father's commands. And there's no better way to teach or learn the word, because these pictures are the letter forms that the Father originally gave. These are the most ancient letter forms known to mankind. And anyway, Abba Father commanded us in Devarim, that's Deuteronomy, chapter 4, verse 2, as well as in Chazon, that's Revelation, chapter 22, verse 19, saying that we should never add to or take anything away from his word. Whenever men interpret his original Aramaic Hebrew word into any other language, and, it also includes modern-day Hebrew language. Everything's been westernized. They add things to it, and they take things away from it. And that's why we do these Otiot studies. The Otiot show us what Abba Father originally said to us in his word. And because they're pictures, No one can add anything to them or take anything away from them. This is how Abba Father protected his word. And it's also what he spoke of in Zephaniah, that's Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 9, where he says, I will turn unto the peoples a clean lip and a pure language. The Otiot are pure and clean. Now, the Aramaic Hebrew word Otiot means signs. And we look at Abba Father's Otiot as letters which he used to write the Bible with. But the Otiot are not only letters, they are numbers as well. And most important of all, they are pictures. You can't get abstract about a picture. For example, most English interpretations say we are saved by grace. Grace is an abstract term. If you look at the Otiot, it says we're saved by pitching our tent with Elohim. Even a child can understand what it means to pitch your tent with Elohim, to work your day and your life every day with him. And, we're saved by that through grace, another abstract term. With the Otiot, it's not through grace, it's through growing in and being washed by his word. Again, something easy enough for a child to understand. There are 22 Otiot to learn about. One sign or one letter is called an ot. In the ancient tongue, it was pronounced oath, which is where we get the English word oath from. And that makes perfect sense because an oath is a statement of fact or a promise of something sacred, something kodesh, dedicated. This is exactly what the Otiot are, sacred facts and sacred promises, kodesh facts and kodesh promises. If you're accustomed to using the word holy, eliminate that pagan word from your vocabulary and replace it with kodesh. Kodesh means something that is dedicated to one thing and one thing only. That is kodesh. Now, Elohim teaches us in his word that he is the Aleph and the Tau, which means that he is the totality of all the Otiot, from the first ot Aleph to the last ot Tau. And that means, among many other things, that we can see a picture of the Father and his Son in each and every one of the Otiot. And think about this. Absolutely everything we see, as well as everything which we cannot see in this world, was created by Abba Father Yahweh through his beloved Son Yeshua, and he spoke everything into existence. This means that his Otiot are the very elements, the building blocks of all creation, the stuff that all things are made of, including you and me. Now, the first ot is Aleph. It is also the number 1. It is pronounced, when you see it as a letter, it's pronounced ah, like Abba, or like Elohim. It's the picture of an ox head. It points at Abba Father Yahweh. It has to do with headship. Abba Father, or the head of a family. It points at being yoked to and taught by one's headship. It also points at strength and power. So if you're doing a word study, such as the word Abba. You'll see Aleph, Beit, Beit, Aleph. So you see Aleph, and it's well, you know the word means something akin to daddy. So first of all, you know you're talking about the Father. So here, Aleph points at Abba, Father, Yahweh. It also points at headship, the head of a family. And it talks about being yoked to Yahweh and being taught by Yahweh. It points at his strength and his power. It's a picture of an ox head because oxen are yoked. There's usually two ox, and they are yoked, or two oxen, and they are yoked. And you can't just put any two oxen together. You have to know what you're doing. One is going to be more dominant than the other, and you have to know which position to put him in. This is where the word talks about don't be unevenly yoked with others. So a picture of an ox head for Aleph because it's pointing at who you're yoked to. And you want to be yoked to Elohim, especially Abba, Father. And he's the one who is going to lead the way, not you. So, being yoked. But when you're looking at a word, you see Abba, Aleph, Beit, Beit, Aleph. Aleph is the Father. Beit, as we're about to see, is a picture of a house. Has to do with family. So you see Father, house, house, Father. The word Abba is talking about the Father of this house is Yahweh, in my case. And this house is of Abba, Father, Yahweh. So you can see how Abba, where if you looked it up as a word, the definition might be like daddy, papa, that kind of thing. But when you look at the Otiot, when you call him Abba, you are saying, Father, you are the headship of this house, and this house belongs to you. See? So there's Aleph. Now we look at Beit. Beit is also the number 2. So, if you wanted to write down the number 21, you would write down Beit Aleph, 2 and 1. Beit is pronounced like a B, such as baby. It's sometimes pronounced like a V, as in victory. It's the picture of a house. It has to do with family. And it has to do with Yeshua. Aleph is number 1, that's Abba, Father. Beit is number 2, that's his son. And then we go to Gimel, which is number 3, and that's his Ruach, his spirit. So when you see the letter Beit, it's talking about family. It's talking about a house. It could be talking about Yeshua. You look at these keywords I'm giving you, and when you want to interpret a word according to the Otiot, you look at each letter, and you consider all or maybe just one of these key words, and you put together your own picture. Abba, Aleph, Beit, Beit, Aleph. Father of the house, house of the Father. It's really quite simple. There's nothing complicated about Yahweh and his word. So now we turn to Gimel. Gimel is the number 3. And it's pronounced like a G, like get. It's a picture of a foot, and it has to do with your walk. It talks about a messenger. Romayim, that's Romans, chapter 10, verse 15 says, how pleasant are the feet of those who bring the good news. Gimel, as I said before, points at the Ruach HaKodesh. That's the Father's Kodesh Spirit. Aleph is number 1, the Father. Beit is number 2, the Son. Gimel is number 3, the Ruach. Then we look at Dalet. Dalet is the number 4, and it's pronounced D, like door. It's a picture of a door, and Yeshua is the door. Dalet talks about the 4 dimensions of space and time. In space, we have 3 dimensions: width, breadth, and height. Then the 4th dimension would be time. So when you see Dalet, it's talking about a door. And when we talk about the 4 dimensions of space and time, Dalet talks about us moving through the door, which is Yeshua, from the physical into the spiritual. In the negative sense, it might talk about like the Nephilim, moving from the spiritual into the physical realm and doing things they shouldn't be doing. Bad kids. Next, we turn to the Ot He. He is the number 5. 5 is the number of grace. And what's grace? Grace is pitching your tent with Elohim. But He is pronounced H, like hello. Or sometimes it's pronounced Ah, like Abba. He is the picture of a spiritual man with his arms raised. It means, when you see it, in a word, it means look or behold. This is an announcement, or pay attention. Hey has to do with personal revelation. What is personal revelation? Personal revelation is sometimes where all of a sudden you understand something that you didn't understand before. Like, wow. Just like, hey, it's like, look, behold, wow. It has to do with revelation. And it has to do with the 5th dimension of spirit. We mentioned Dalet has to do with the 4 dimensions, width, breadth, height, and time. And He has to do with the 5th dimension of Ruach, spirit. Then we turn to Wa. Wa is the number 6. 6 is the number of man. And it's pronounced W, like water. Sometimes it's pronounced O, like ocean. And sometimes it's pronounced Oo, like blue. It's a picture of a tent peg. And it talks about pitching your tent with Elohim. It also talks about securing something. Next we have Zayin. Zayin is the number 7, and it's pronounced Z, like zoo. It's a picture of a plowing tool. It has to do with digging into the Word, being fruitful, spreading the good seed. When you dig with a plowing tool, you create a little rut in the dirt for you to put your seeds in. So, this ode has to do with spreading the good seed, Yeshua, the message of Abba Father's Word. And this ode also has to do with remembering Shabbat, the 7th day, where we rest. Then we turn to Chet. Chet is the number 8, and it's pronounced that's a guttural sound, like Ruach. And a lot of people say, they can't do that, and they'll say Ruach. It's good. Learn to roll your R's. And, have you ever had a popcorn shell stuck in the back of your throat? It's kind of natural to, do that to get it out, right? That's how you pronounce chet. Chet. And when you say ruach, it's not ruach, it's ruach. It can be fun. Practice it. Learn to speak Yahweh's language with these pronunciations. Chet is the picture of a fence. It has to do with dividing things. In Lucas, chapter 12, verse 51, Yeshua says, "Do you think that I came to give peace or shalom on earth? I say to you, no, but rather division." So Yeshua came to chet, to divide things. Chet has to do with the resurrection, the net chetef, commonly known as the rapture. It also has to do with chai, eternal life, and with the operation of the gifts of the Ruach. There are 9 gifts. You can see them. Go to your Bible and read 1 Corinthians, that's 1 Corinthians, chapter 12, verses 8, 9, and 10. There are 9 gifts listed. People make the mistake of wanting to own these things of Elohim. Oh, he has the gift of healing, and she has the gift of discernment of spirits. No, that's not true. No one has the gift of healing. No one has the gift of discernment of spirits. People, anyone who has the indwelling Ruach, can be given the gift of healing when Elohim wants to heal someone. They don't own that gift. If Elohim used someone to lay hands on another person and you saw a miracle happen, I've experienced it a number of times, it's a wonderful thing. He used that person and to heal the other person. That person who laid hands on and was used as Elohim's tool to heal that person, they don't walk away with the gift of healing. They don't own that gift. Elohim gave it to them at that time. Later, he might give them another gift because he wants to do something else. Anyone who has the indwelling Ruach can experience any one of the 9 gifts. And Chet is the oath that speaks about these gifts of the Ruach. But just remember, nobody owns any gift permanently. Elohim uses his children and imparts any one of the gifts as he sees fit. But it's not something that anyone owns. Next we have the oath Tet, and that is the number 9. Tet is pronounced T, like today. It's the picture of a basket, and it has to do with surrounding, containing, or storing things. Tet talks about catching fish. In other words, drawing people in to the love of Elohim. Tet speaks about generosity, and it also speaks about giving in secret. You know, if you want to give of yourself to someone in any way, shape, or form, the best way to do that is in secret. You don't tell anyone. Abba says in his word, if you do something special for someone else, or if you give to someone else, and you tell others right then and there, that's your reward, and that's your only reward. But if you give in secret and you don't tell anybody, only Elohim knows and you know, then your reward will come from him. And that reward is immeasurable. Where if you brag about it to other people, that's your reward. That's the only reward you get. It's very temporary. People really don't care what you did, and it's forgotten about very quickly. There are greater rewards by giving in secret, and that's what the Otiot talks about. Next, we have Yod. Yod is the number 10. It's pronounced Y, like Yahweh or Yah. Or sometimes it's pronounced like E, like easy. It's the picture of an arm and a hand. It has to do with work, what you make. It has to do with your actions, what you do. It has to do with worshiping and throwing, like casting out seeds. Seeds. You cast seeds out whenever you speak the Father's word. They are like seeds. He waters them, and then beautiful things grow inside of people. Next, we look at Kaph. Kaph is the number 20, and it's pronounced K, like kind. It's the picture of an open palm. And it talks about bending, allowing, opening. It talks about taming or subduing the flesh. We all have a flesh nature. We all have a ruach, spiritual nature. The flesh is kind of selfish. It wants to have its own way. And we all have to learn how to tame or to subdue our flesh. We all have to learn how to say, no, that's not good for me. I'm not going to allow that. I'm going to bend and change my ways. I'm going to open myself to obeying Abba Father's instructions rather than to obey the desires of my flesh. Kaph has to do with the work of Yeshua. And it has to do with the filling of the Ruach, not the receiving of the Ruach, but the filling of it. When anyone dedicates themselves to become Kodesh to Elohim and to make Abba Father and Yeshua their master, their Adon, they receive his indwelling Ruach. But they don't receive the filling of the Ruach until they carry on from that point and they learn to grow in his word and to be washed by and cleansed by his word. The more we do that, the more we receive the filling of the Ruach. So you can get more and more of the Ruach the more you spend time being washed by and growing in his word. And that is what Kaph is about, the filling of his Ruach in you. Then we have Lamed. Lamed is the number 30. It's pronounced L like love. Lamed is the picture of a shepherd's staff. It has to do with the leader and the teacher of sheep. It has to do with protecting and steering sheep. It has to do with being yoked to Yeshua. And it has to do with being one of the Talmudim. It has to do with discipleship, being a student of Yeshua. Where Aleph is about being yoked to the Father, Lamed is about being yoked to the Son, Yeshua. Then we have Mem. Mem is the number 40, and it's pronounced M, like mommy. It's the picture of water. The Father's word washes us clean. It also has to do with the blood of Yeshua, which paid for our shortcomings. Mem has to do with questioning things. It has to do about wondering. Oh, I wonder what that means. It has to do with mightiness. Sometimes it has to do with chaos, when everything just goes wild, like a hurricane or a tornado. Then we have the Ot Nun. Nun is the number 50, and it's pronounced N, like Nazareth. It's the picture of a seed. Yeshua is the good seed. Satan is the bad seed. There are only two seeds in all the world. Some people are just offshoots of the bad seed. They produce the same fruit as the bad seed. And that's why we see bad things going on in the world. Yeshua is the good seed, and those who belong to him produce the same kind of fruit that he produces. An apple has an apple seed in it. That apple seed produces more apple trees, which produce blossoms, that produce apples, that produce more seeds. And we have the good seed, we have the bad seed in the world. Why is that? Why does Abba Father allow darkness in this world and bad people to do bad things? Satan and the bad seed. It's all because he doesn't want to make a bunch of robots that everybody just loves him and they're just like mechanically moving along. That's not Elohim's way. Elohim creates, you can see a whole field of daisies, and they all look the same. But if you pick two of them, they are absolutely different and unique. Yahweh makes things that are not the same. They're the same in one way, but always unique and individual in their own way. So he wants his children to have free will and to love him by their own choice. So how can he give them a choice? He created evil and he created goodness, and people can make a choice so that when it's all over with, Abba Father will know, these are my children and these are not. That's what it's all about. And Nun is the picture of a seed. It has to do with unstoppable motion. When a seed starts, you can't stop it. Did you ever see a little plant growing up through a crack in a rock or in cement? You can't stop that seed. It'll grow up through a rock. It'll make a crack if it has to, but you can't stop it. It has to do with unstoppable motion. And Nun also has to do with offspring, heirs. People are either offspring of Yeshua or Satan. They're either heirs of Yeshua or heirs of Satan, Hashatan. Next we have Samech. Samech is the number 60, and it's pronounced S, like Samuel. It's the picture of a thorn, a sharp and piercing shield, not a thorn that necessarily would hurt someone, but rather would hurt anything that's trying to hurt someone. It's a sharp and piercing shield. It's Elohim's Gader HaKodesh, his hedge of protection. that he puts around people he loves. Samech talks about grabbing and holding. A thorn is a seed, but a seed that attaches itself to clothing or hair, and it doesn't let go. And Samech also has to do with infinity, limitlessness, endlessness. Abba Father has no beginning, no end. That is Samech. Next we have Ayin. Ayin is the number 70. It's pronounced, it's a guttural kind of a G. Or sometimes it's pronounced Ah, like Abba. And sometimes it's pronounced like a Y, like Yahshua. It's the picture of an eye, and it has to do with spiritual sight and vision. It has to do with watching. It has to do with knowing. And it has to do with His Word and His Ruach converging in your soul, converging in your living experience. In other words, Ayin talks about your life changing because you are in His Word and it's growing in you. It's washing you clean. And then you have His indwelling Ruach. And because you're growing in His Word and it's washing you clean, you're getting the filling of His Ruach too. And those two things, His Word and His Ruach, are converging in your living experience, and they're flowering like a plant and making changes, wonderful changes, in your living experience, your soul. Next we have the Ot Pei. Pei is the number 80, and it's pronounced P, like Peter, or sometimes it's pronounced like an F, like Philip. Pei is the picture of a mouth. It has to do with speaking, praising, singing. It talks about blowing. You know, when Yeshua was with his Talmidim, his disciples, after he was resurrected, he looked at them and he said, "Receive the Ruach," and he blew on them. That's Pei. Pei also has to do with the edge of something, like a seashore, being on the edge of the earth and the ocean. Next we have my favorite, one of my favorite, well, they're all my favorites. But this one is Sadi, or you could say Tzad. Most people say Sadi. Sadi is the number 90, and it's pronounced tz, not s like S, but you start to say a T, and then you put an S behind it. Tz, tz, like tzeet. It's a picture of a path. The way. The way to the Father there's only one way to the Father, and that is through Yeshua. And it's narrow, it's compressed. It's not easy to find. And few are those who do find the way. The road to destruction, on the other hand, is wide, broad, easy to find, and most people are on that. But Sadi has to do with hunting or chasing something. Hunting the Father and chasing the Father. Hunting Yeshua, chasing Yeshua, searching for Him in His Word. Hunting and chasing, searching for that narrow path to find it. And Sadi has to do with righteousness. there's an Aramaic Hebrew word, tzaddik, that means the righteous one. Yeshua is tzaddik. Then we have Koph. Koph is the number 100, and it's pronounced like a K, like Koph. It's a picture of the sun at the horizon. It's either rising or setting. Rising is Kadam, back to the beginning, to the east where the light rises and shines towards the light. Or when the sun is setting, it's Yam, into the west, into darkness. Koph talks about cycles, like the Shemitah. Or, one day the sun rises and then it sets. Another day the sun rises and sets. And it talks about time. Next we turn to Resh. Resh is the number 200, and it's pronounced like an R, like Ruach. It's the picture of a man's head, and it has to do with who your headship is and who and what your thoughts are on. Whatever your headship is. If your headship is Elohim, your thoughts are on Him and His Word all the time. If your headship is money, then your thoughts are on money all the time. You want your headship to be Elohim. You want your thoughts to be on Elohim all the time, no matter what your interests are. Next we have Sheen. Sheen is the number 300, and it's pronounced sh, like shamayim. It's the picture of two front teeth. It has to do with something that's sharp, something that cuts, something that separates. It also talks about pressing. The way to the Father is narrow and it's pressed, compressed. It also talks about a pair or the second one. And then we come to the final Ot, Tau. Tau is the number 400, and it's pronounced like a T, like time. It's the picture of crossed sticks. It is Yahweh's mark, and it represents a signature. Hundreds of years ago, even 100 years ago, maybe 150 years ago, not really that long ago, there were many people who didn't know how to write. So if they had to sign a document and they didn't know how to write their own name, they would be told, make your mark. And most people would just make an X, or like two crossed sticks. And a handwriting expert could tell if my mark was just two crossed sticks, if I just went like that and made an X, a handwriting expert could tell if that was the X I wrote, or if it was the X that you wrote. So people used to make their mark that way as well, and Yahweh started it. So Tau has to do with a signature. It's also a sign, a mark of some kind, and it represents a monument. Yahweh puts His mark on us that love Him, and we become a monument to Him, a monument to His Son. A monument like these are the ones that loved the Father. And there you have all 22 Otiot. Stay tuned and you'll see a link where you can click and get my books so that you could have the Otiot in book form. There will be another link where you can go and get the flash cards. And I'm trying to get them to sell these as a set. I haven't been able to do that yet. So when you go there, you'll see there's 22 cards. You have to click on one, and if you want one, or if you want two or three of them, if you want 3 sets, you can say 3. But you have to put each card one at a time into your shopping cart. They're not that expensive, and the more you buy, the less you're charged. So I think you can buy like one set for around $13 or $14. But these are great to have. I just bought Isabella a brand new set because she's pretty much destroyed the first set I got her, drool. She's only a year old. So that's that. Now, the thing is, in my book, I talk about how to conduct your studies. So aside from having the Otiot in the book, I explain a little bit of how to conduct your studies. It's a little bit difficult with the New Testament, that is the Renewed Covenant books, because the world thinks that they were written in Greek, and all you can get are the Greek words. It's a little bit difficult. I've found, some ways, and I have a playlist about the Otiot, and in there, if you want to dig in, the Renewed Covenant books were penned in Aramaic, and they were found, and the documents are older than any of the Greek texts, so there's proof that the Father's Word, from beginning to end, Bereshith, Genesis, all the way to Chazon, Revelation, all written in Aramaic. But I don't need proof. I mean, it's just common sense. This is the Father's language. These are the letter forms he wrote his word in. And a simple way too, like even if you're in the Renewed Covenant books, if you want to know what a word is, you can go to Strong's Exhaustive Concordance on the web, and you can type in a word, whether it's grace or faith or whatever, and you can see from the Old Testament books, from the First Covenant books, what the original Aramaic Hebrew word was. And when you go there, you'll see the Hebrew letters. And you have to learn how to interpret modern Hebrew into the Otiot, which is not difficult. And then you could do your word studies. But, it's just a matter of taking these key points that I've given you about each ot. And if you see a word, like the word for son is, it looks like ben, B-E-N, in English, but it's pronounced bane. And you'll see 2 letters, Beit and Nun. And by the way, it's really easy to figure out. A word like bane, ben, B-N, Beit, Nun. It becomes very easy to learn how to read Aramaic Hebrew words once you get the idea about what's going on. Bane, there's 2 consonants there, B and N, B and N. That's Beit and Nun. So, the word Bane means son. You look at it and it's Beit, that's a picture of a house, the family. And then Nun is a picture of a seed. So the son is the seed of the family. And that's how we do these things. You get creative. And don't get too creative, Don't add to his word. But you can get pretty creative when you look at the letters of any word, the Otiot of any word, and to see what picture the Father was painting. And it will be truer than any westernized definition of any word there is on earth. That's our study with the Otiot, my friends. I hope and I pray that this is a beracha to you and yours. I hope and I pray that if you're a man and you're married, you have a wife and children, that you adopt this habit of teaching your wife and your children His word this way. He commanded you as the head of the house to teach your wife and your children. Please do so. And as always, Abba willing, I'll see you here next week. Until then, shalom, my friends. Yeah. Now 2,000 years have gone by, it's another working day. Some would rather let it lie, but the question still remains.